Now, so our concern now is Unit 2, Language Teaching Methods. And in this unit, we are going to talk about language teaching methods, the audio-lingual method, and then the communicative teaching method. Just two of them. Very short unit, just to tell you the methods of teaching language that we have. Now, in Unit 1, you learned that methods were modes of teaching, of course. You also learned that a given method is based on an approach derived from a given philosophy or theory. Now, in this unit, you are going to learn more about language teaching methods, their theoretical basis, approaches, strategies for teaching teaching a language. I don't think there is anything to explain in that introduction. It's very self-explanatory. Now, what are the objectives that we have for this class, especially this unit? Now, after studying this unit, we should be able to do the following. One, name and describe two main language teaching methods we have. Describe the theoretical basis of the two language teaching methods. We should be able to describe the approaches of these language teaching methods and then compare and contrast these two language teaching methods. And finally, we should be able to make a judicious choice of which method to use to attain a specific learning objectives, which means the type of method you will use in any class will be largely based on the objectives of that class. So for instance, now as we've read these objectives now for this particular class, if I'm a teacher, I should know the method that I should switch into, whether the audio-lingual or the communicative method. So that is what that was. I think we don't need to start explanation yet. Let us check from here. So I will start reading. We will say language teaching methods. There are two main language teaching methods. That's the first thing you should know, two of them. Now, these are the audio-lingual and the communicative language teaching methods. This statement alone has already given us the answer to objective number one for reading this class, for reading this part of the material. We have to, let me look at it again. There are two main language teaching methods. These are the audio-lingual and communicative language teaching method. Audio-lingual and communicative language teaching method. Now, these are the two we have. And don't worry, we are merely reading now. We're going to explain later. Now let's go to this. The audio-lingual method. Let's read for now. What does it mean and how does it operate? Now, the audio-lingual method dominated language teaching in the 60s and early 70s. The method was based on the theory of behaviorism propounded by a psychologist named Skinner. You know, anything behavior, your mind should go to Skinner. You know him. So that psychologist in behavior, stimuli, and the rest of them. Now, according to Skinner, human beings learn by habit formation through the process called the stimulus, response, and reinforcement. That's stimulus, response, and reinforcement. Now, the audio-linguistics borrowed Skinner's theory and adopted it as a language teaching approach. Now, their method of teaching consisted of selecting aspects of the language, for instance, vocabulary, grammatical structures, phrases, presenting this in form of dialogues or pattern drills to the learners. Now, presentation of this was first orally and later through the writing and reading. The learners listen and repeat after the teacher and the dialogues and pattern drills several times. This essence is to get the learners to commit this to memory and whenever called to reproduce this. Now, they will be expected to do so without making mistakes. You see that kind of method of teaching. Whenever the learner says the dialogues or pattern drills well, he is rewarded or reinforced by the teacher by some form of approval, e.g., praises. This is an evidence that learning has occurred or that a habit has been formed. Mistakes or errors are not tolerated by this method of teaching. They are corrected immediately. They occur. So the content of learning is artificially made up or conceived, contrived. Now, the main purpose is to teach learners to master the basic vocabulary and grammar of the language. It is believed that once a learner masters this, he can use the language in various situations requiring the, excuse me, all this my notification, the use of the learned vocabulary or grammatical structures. So the method is teacher-centered because the teacher controls what the pupils learn and does not give them the opportunity for self-expression. Like if you check what we're trying to say now, you look at it that, okay, no explanation. Let's be disciplined. We are merely reading for now. We'll explain later. Now, this method of teaching language has been criticized for a number of reasons. Now, one of these criticisms is that merely knowing the vocabulary and grammar of the language does not equip one well to use the language. This is because the use of language entails other things, such as the user knowing the functions of language, the importance of the different roles of participant in a given language situation. The critics of this method consider it very limited as a means of teaching meaningful language acquisition. But this limitation notwithstanding, the audio-lingual method has some usefulness in the teaching of discrete forms of language, especially vocabulary and grammar. There are times the teacher may need to teach these aspects of language in a bid to help his pupils correct grammar usage. This is why, in spite of the criticism leveled against the method, it still thrives in language classrooms. So, numerous examples of dialogues and pattern drills are formed in language textbooks. For example, for some examples of these, don't worry, we'll turn to, I think we've done something similar to that. Now, I think I will need to turn off this notification of WhatsApp. It's really blocking, it's blocking a lot. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Although I want to believe that what we have been reading is very self-explanatory, but it's always important we, of course, criticize it. So I will still talk about the criticism. We're still going to criticize it. So let's look at this thing from the beginning. We're trying to check the first method, which is the audio-lingual method. We read earlier that we have two methods, the audio-lingual method and, of course, the communicative language teaching method. Both the audio-lingual and the communicative methods, those are the two we have. So the first concern is to deal with the audio-lingual method. Now, when we're talking about this audio-lingual, we've read quite a lot of things under it, and I think we should be able to talk about it a bit now. Now, to help our understanding, you first need to look at the two things that make up that method, audio and lingual. Two things are combined together. That's a compound word, audio, lingual. The audio aspect means hearing and listening, or hearing or listening. Audio, anything that has to do, if you play music now, it's in audio form. So you hear it and you listen to it. That the main focus or the main reason we have audio is that we want to listen to audio or we want to hear it. Now, the other part is lingual, which is language or speaking. Two things combined together, listening and speaking. Hearing and language. Those are the two things combined together in this single method, audio lingual method. So the name is a compound one. So in very simple terms, the audio lingual method is a method of teaching language, mainly through listening, repeating, and practicing correct language patterns until they become habits. You listen, you repeat it, then you practice that thing you are listening to, a repetition. You keep like what this is a very, very common thing in Islamic religion. Those are the Muslims can relate to this. When they go to Arabic school, Ileke, or what they will call it in Yoruba, that is the method they use. Those students, those learners recite, like the teacher says it, that is the alpha. They repeat it over and over and over again until the thing becomes part of their brain. So they don't need to open the book for it again or anything. So you are the teacher says it out. They repeat it. That is drilling. I'm very sure that was one part of this material we'll talk about drilling, and I try to explain drilling very well with a very clear picture in that class. Now, if you want to look at audiolingual method critically, we'll say it involves a circle, and the circle starts with listening. Then you repeat what you listen to, then you practice it, then memorize it, then you use it. 5 steps. You listen, you repeat what you've listened to, you practice it, that is, you keep saying it time like more than 100 times. Then you memorize it. From continuous repetition of what you've listened to, something happens to the brain, it sticks. I remember when I was very young then, my although that one is not actually audiolingual because nobody was reading it to me. So it's not like I was listening to the audio, but I just want to use it for an example. So then I think my mom asked me that every night before you sleep, oh, the network is fluctuating. I'm so sorry about that. Is it better now? I'm just seeing your message. Is it better now, or we look for a way? Probably I can switch to another network. This one is not YouTube. Switching is allowed in this place. Is it better now? Can you let me know? You can always cut in. This is Zoom. You can on your mic and talk. We can always relate. I want to know, is it better now? I don't just want to continue with that.
It's when you are talking, if you just go off, when you want to make a sentence, you just hear it in parts.
In part, let me switch.
Yes.
Let me switch to MTN. Then we'll hold on and see. Just give me a minute. The moment I'm done switching, I will ask you. So if it's better, then you let me know. But for a minute or so, the thing may not work well because of the switching. Mm. So just give me a minute to do that. We will need to do that. I don't even, let me check the MTN. Okay. I think something will need to happen first. Excuse me, just a minute. What's 60? Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, no, no, no. That is not so good. Okay, let me see this one if it's going to work. Okay. Okay, so we're good to go. All right, I'm going to take the switch now. It's likely the thing goes off a bit while I'm doing that, but it will come up again. This is the advantage of Zoom over YouTube. Hmm. I am. Is this better? Hello, ma. Is this better?
Yes, I can hear your voice.
All right, thank you.
I wouldn't know anything to talk.
Let's see how.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma. You're welcome. So let's see how MTL will do. So let's just continue like that. Don't have time because
Your screen, you have not shared your screen.
sure, I will do that first. Okay. The other madam is here. You're welcome. So I was trying to cite an example of something that happened while I was still very young. Then my mom told me that every night before you sleep, make sure you read Psalm 27. Like I was a very young boy then. So I took it like an instruction. You know mothers now. If they tell you to do something, you not do it, you are in trouble. So I had to do it religiously. So every night before I sleep, Psalm 27. By the time I'll do it for like maybe 6 months or so, I found out that something started happening naturally. I started getting bored of opening it to read because I already know it off hands. The thing I've stuck in, like the brain is now registered in that, so in those lines. All I just need is just to say, the Lord is my light and my salvation. That is all. The rest will start flowing in. So what happened is you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. That is the main purpose of this method. Somebody says it to you, then you keep repeating it after that person. Then you yourself keep practicing it. You keep repeating. That's what I'm saying, that the steps involve: one, you listen. Then you repeat after the person you are listening to. Then you practice that thing over and over again. Then what happens next is that you find yourself that you're already memorizing that thing. And once you memorize it, it is useful to you. You use it. So the audio lingual method in fact, that is a method they use in Arabic school. I'm just using that Arabic school because I want you guys to be able to relate to the situation. They use that a lot in the Arabic school. So where did the audiolingual method came from? How did it start? This part of the material also mentioned where it started from. We talked about a psychologist, Skinner. I want you guys to note that anywhere you hear that name, Skinner, we are practically talking about the man that this mostly all of his life's work was on behavior. He dealt a lot with behavior. Now, the audiolingual method was very popular method used in teaching in the 1960s and 1970s, like early 1970s. And the motivation they had then was from the psychological theory of behaviorism, which is popularly associated with B.F. Skinner. With B.F. Skinner. Now, the basic idea is that people can learn behaviors through habit formation. That is the basic idea of behaviorism that they were using to teach audio lingual method then. The basic idea is that they want to form people's behavior. They want to mold people's behavior through habit formation. Now, for language teaching now, the thinking then was, if a learner repeatedly hears and produces the correct expression, then eventually the correct expression will become a habit. So if, for instance, we are to tell a child that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is to brush your teeth. Like if you should help the child to get the correct expression. Now you just okay, this is the right way to say this thing. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing to do is to brush your teeth. Then the child repeats it after you over and over again. Now the child learns one expression and one behavior that when he wakes up in the morning, what he or she do? Brush his teeth. But that's not the only thing. You also learn the expression that this is the correct way to say it. So if a learner repeatedly hears and produces the correct expression, English expression, eventually the correct expression will become a habit. That is the idea of behaviorism, the psychology or psychological theory of behaviorism. Now, let's take a very simple example as teachers. You think about learning to greet someone now, for instance. A child repeatedly hears good morning. Then the child is encouraged to respond good morning. After doing this repeatedly, the child no longer needs to think deeply before responding to good morning. It becomes automatic. This is the this is the philosophy behind audio lingual method that we're talking about. When the child has been hearing good morning, good morning, good morning, at the initial, it may be hard for the child to respond that the answer is good morning. But with repetition, it becomes like the child now becomes so used to that word good morning that anywhere he hears it, you know that the response should also be what? Good morning. So it now becomes as if it has been programmed automatically. But that comes through audio lingual method, repetition. Now, they also talk about the stimulus, response, and reinforcement, which is, related to Skinner, this part that I highlighted there. Now, what can we say there? Now, this is one of the most important concepts we need to understand in this particular reading that we are doing. So, according to the behaviorist, habit formation happens through the process of stimulus, response, and reinforcement. Now let's look at each of them one by one so we understand what we're saying there. It doesn't just look philosophical in our eyes. Now, stimulus, that is something that causes or encourages a learner to respond. Something that causes or encourages a learner to respond is something that is requesting for your response. So, for example, now, let's say a teacher says, "Good morning, Titi," for instance. I'm sorry, Madam Titi, I should have put Madam Titi there, but actually, let me not use your name. So, let's say a teacher says, "Good morning, Tunde." Is a teacher, you, the teacher, you're the one telling the learner, "Good morning, Tunde." Now, that is the stimulus. "Good morning, Tunde" from the teacher is the stimulus. You know that you as a teacher, you are expecting something from that puppy. The moment you say, "Good morning, Tunde," your own is stimulus because there is a need for response. You are expecting something from that learner that you said good morning to. So the response the learner will give is a reaction to your stimuli. Your own stimuli is "Good morning, Tunde." Your learner's response is a reaction. The reaction may be "Good morning, ma," or "Good morning, sir." You understand? So that is a response. That response is a reaction to the stimuli, which is a kind of like a stimuli is like a bait. Like, you know what a bait is? When you tie something nice to a hook and you throw the hook into the river trying to catch a fish. Now, that hook and the bait that you put on the hook is a stimulus to the fish. To you now, you are expecting a response. That means the fish should be attracted to the bait and then get hooked in the hook. Now, reinforcement. Reinforcement. The reinforcement aspect is now the teacher now encourages the correct response. So if Tunde should say "Good morning, ma," or "Good morning, sir," Then the teacher said, excellent. That excellent you just said is a reinforcement to tell Tunde that what Tunde has just done is correct. So when you, as a teacher, when you encourage the correct response from your stimulus, you serve, it's just like a stimulus is a service. You serve a food to the child responded by eating it. If the child eats it correctly, then you give a remark. So reinforcement is like a remark. Oh, excellent. You've done well. Now that is reinforcement. So the teacher says, good morning, Tunde. Tunde says, good morning, sir.